What's good, YouTube? It's your boy Trizzy, man. I'm back. First and foremost, I just want to say I apologize for the environment. I just got to work, but I wanted to do this segment as quick as I could, based off of what transpired last night in the NBA. This is basically my first sports segment that I've done in a while, so I wanted to get to it before anything else can transpire in the NBA. I wanted to do a preview of the conference finals, man. So basically, let me fix this camera real quick. All right. So basically, we're here at the conference finals. Boston versus Cleveland. Houston versus Golden State. So this is my new sports segment called In the Know. So what we're going to do right now is we're going to talk about a few of the things that led up to getting these teams to where they are now. What I think should happen for them to get past this and get to the NBA finals. And then I'll have another segment where I talk about the matchup of the NBA finals and who will ultimately probably win the championship. Or my take on what teams need to do to win the championship. So let's start out west first. Since I'm from the West Coast, it's only right that I speak about the Western Conference first. And this is going to be I'm not going to really bash anybody. I'm just going to have some talking points about what teams need to do to get to win, or what needs to happen, and which team can do the most of what I feel needs to happen should also have them advance to the next round, which is the NBA Finals. So let's start with Golden State and the Houston series. Houston, as we know, has been playing good basketball under Coach D'Antoni, with the addition of Chris Paul, helping James Harden out as not being the only superstar surrounded by role players and shooters and defenders or whatever. They have a system that's basically based off of shooting a lot of threes or getting to the line or getting all the way to the basket. There's no in between with them. So through the analytics, that seems to be working, and it's always worked for D'Antoni in a regular season. As far as how it's worked for him in the playoffs, there hasn't been. I won't say it hasn't been a lot of success. There has been some, none resulting in a championship. So, with that being said, they are at a bit of a disadvantage as far as the experience it takes to win a conference finals and ultimately win a championship, based off of the players that they have on the roster right now. I do think that they match up well with the Golden State Warriors as far as having wing defenders, some 3 and defense guys, a big that can run pick and that can run pick and roll with James Harden or Chris Paul. You have an MVP candidate in James Harden. You have one of the top point guards in Chris Paul when he's healthy to help run the show. Like I said, Clint Capella is I won't say a dominant big, but he's a more than worthy big to have on your team as far as defensively and offensively. Then you add 6 man of the year candidate, reigning 6 man of the year, Eric Gordon, who hasn't really been having a great playoff run. But if he was to get his shit together anytime soon, would be the great time for him to do so. The addition of Gerald Green, I think, is big because you have another long 3-point shooter, spark off the bench. If Eric Gordon's not getting it going, you have another option of having someone score bench points. You have a backup big in Nene who has a lot of NBA experience and can probably match up well with the Golden State Warrior bigs if you're talking about a Kevon Looney or JaVale McGee. And maybe even at times, if Draymond is in there, he could probably, you know, do some work in that area down in the paint for Houston. Not to mention the veteran championship small forward Trevor Ariza, who will have his hands full basically switching off and guarding Kevin Durant. I believe Houston will probably use Trevor Ariza, Ba Mute, and at some point PJ Tucker, even though he's kind of undersized, but he's a tough, tenacious defender. So I think being able to run those three defenders at Kevin Durant and or Klay Thompson could be a good thing for them. I'm not saying that they're going to stop KD or Klay, but if they can make it difficult, if they can make them shoot a few percentage points below what they normally shoot, you know, that will work in Houston's favor as far as trying to get past this series. James Harden got to be James Harden every game. He can't take any games off. Otherwise, you could just throw it out the window, man. It's not. He can't have a 2 for 17 game and think he's still gonna win by 20, like they play in Minnesota or anything like that. James Harden needs to be MVP level or above, 30 points, 8 to 10 assists, 5 to 6 rebounds, limit the turnovers, hit his threes and his free throws, and go to the rack. Go to the rack. Get some people in foul trouble. Chris Paul, he needs to be as steady as he's been so far this playoffs. The role players need to be the role players. The role players, I mean, there's a chance that you may get a 20-point performance from Eric Gordon or Trevor Ariza or, you know, one of the other role player guys that maybe not known for scoring a lot, but in order for Houston to win, they're going to need another piece, a third scorer, a fourth scorer that could be consistent in the series, that can get you between 15 and 20 points on top of James Harden playing MVP level, Chris Paul being the floor general that he is, and Clint Capella being a double-double pretty much every night. If those things happen for Houston, I can see them having a good shot at winning the series. Now let's go to the Golden State Warriors. In order for them to win this series, they need to be who they've been the last 3 or 4 years. They can't have injuries as far as Steph Curry being out or Klay Thompson being out or KD being out. I think if they have any issue with injuries like that, it opens up the door for Houston to kind of take the series. But looking at Golden State at full strength, and that's what I'm assuming, especially for Houston also. I didn't mention that, but if Houston's at full strength and Golden State is at full strength, this is what I'm expecting. I believe Klay will be sticking James Harden. So I'm not sure if that means his production on the offensive end will go down, simply because they may want to focus more on shutting James Harden or making things harder for James Harden. I still think Klay Thompson is going to be able to get his points in bunches. I don't think it'll be 2, 3, 4 points a quarter I think it'll be more one of the. I think it'll be more like he may not score in the first quarter just because he's focusing on defense or trying to slow James Harden down, and then he'll catch a pocket in the game where he'll run off 3 or 4 threes or get to the free throw line, and then next thing you know, you look up, he has 15 points or 17 points or 19 points or 20 points or whatever. Um, but I don't think going into the series that it will be on him to carry the load of an offensive scorer, spot up shooter like he's done in the past. I think I think his main focus will be to be that two-way player that they look at him as far as trying to slow down James Harden. Steph Curry coming off the injury into the New Orleans series, he came in with a blast. He ended with a blast. I expect Steph to be Steph. I don't think. I think they kept him out long enough to where he's back to 100%. I know a couple of playoff series from the years before he came back, but you could tell that he wasn't necessarily 100%. You know what I'm saying? But a 85% Steph is still a good player. But in this instance, I think that they kept him out long enough to make sure that he was going to be 100% and ready to go for the playoff run that they put together. So I expect Steph to be Steph, 25, 6-6 maybe, little give or take, maybe a little more, maybe a little less. As far as KD is concerned, I think KD will be KD. That's not a good thing. It's not a bad thing. In this system that Golden State has, I understand that KD doesn't have to score 40 points, 45 points for them to win. I would like to see it, though. I would like to see KD get hot and they just run everything through him, and him being considered one of the best players in the league today as it stands. I would like to see KD take over a game and not so much be reliant on Steph, Clay, Draymond, the system. Sometimes you just got to get hot, and I want to see Golden State just go through him. Maybe I'm not saying the whole series average 40, but I want to see KD maybe on the road in Houston catch fire, and they just go through him and let him just do his thing, because I think that's what's kind of missing from his resume. He does, don't get me wrong, he can score efficiently, he can do a lot of different things, but I haven't yet to see KD really just, go God mode on an opponent. You know what I'm saying? Even when he scored 50, yeah, he was hot, he was cooking, but it was like he was like the only option. I want to see where Golden State has everybody out there, and like, remember when Clay went crazy in that one quarter when he didn't miss, and they would just like, fuck it, just keep giving him the ball. Like, I want to see KD have a moment like that. Or when Clay went for like 60 in like 3 quarters or whatever, like they just kept feeding him the rock. I haven't seen that from KD since he's been in Golden State. I would like to see him have a moment like that, especially in the playoffs, to where, you know what I'm saying, it can add to his legacy. Because, of course, excuse me, his legacy kind of took a hit going to Golden State, to a team that was 73-9, and basically not having to shoulder the load of being a max player superstar that has to carry a team, against all odds type of thing. So I think if KD, Clay, and Steph just go out and do their regular, everyone scores 25, 26, it'll be good. Don't get me wrong. But I want to see next level basketball from from either Steph, Clay, or KD. Draymond is going to be Draymond. We already know. He's going to try to frustrate Houston. He's going to be the Swiss Army knife, rebounds, steals, assists, blocks. Uh, he'll hit his open shots. Not really a big fan of Draymond taking threes, but if they're there for him and he can hit them, so be it. But I see Draymond being, that near triple double or like a 5-for-5 type of guy. You know what I mean? Where he has like, more than 5 rebounds, more than 5 assists, 5 steals, 4 or 5 blocks. And then, you throw in 9 to 15 points. I can see him being that, like, throughout this series. As far as the role players in Golden State, the bench players, Kevon Looney has been having a pretty decent playoff run. I like to see how he adjusts to being in the conference finals against Houston. As far as will he do anything more offensively? I know he's a pretty good defender. Will they use JaVale McGee? Will he be able to be on the court and not be a detriment if Houston's playing small ball? I'm not sure about what they're going to do with Jordan Bell, but I think this would be a good series to kind of get him some minutes. We already know Iguodala is going to do his thing as far as just basically controlling the pace and tempo when the other superstars aren't in the game. He'll hit timely shots. He'll play some good defense. He'll make the right pass. Livingston will come off the bench and he'll get you 8 to 12. Quinn Cook is a nice addition as far as having another guard that could come off the bench, push the tempo, hit open shots, and keep the engine running at a high level. You know what I'm saying? David West is just him just being the veteran that he is, having all the experience that he has. He won't have to come in and do a whole lot, like say score 10 points and get 6 rebounds, but he's a decent defender. He'll knock down the elbow jumper. He'll get you some extra possessions on the offensive rebound, some putbacks, get people in foul trouble. The intangible things that he can do with the veteran savviness that he has as a player. So, of course, the playoffs are all about matchups and adjustments and coaching. So, will Steve Kerr out-coach D'Antoni? I would lean towards yes, because I haven't seen D'Antoni. I've seen him make adjustments, but most of the time the adjustments he makes are from game to game. Steve Kerr is a coach that will probably make adjustments quarter to quarter or possession to possession. You know what I mean? And that's a big difference. You can't wait until the game is over to go review film and then make an adjustment for game 2 or game 3 or game 4 when your opponent is constantly making adjustments possession to possession or quarter to quarter or half to half and changing things up to make sure that they don't give up a 20-point lead or they don't fall behind by so much or whatever. So I think it'll be a good series. If I had to pick a winner at the present moment without seeing how game 1 plays out, which is what I usually like to do, just to check the temperature of if the moment is going to be too big for either one, which I don't think that would be a problem for Golden State. I'm more worried about if it's too big of a moment for Houston, simply because of the playoff performance that we've seen from James Harden in the past once he gets this far in the playoffs. Based on Chris Paul not ever being here before. He's a great player, but I think once you get into this part of the season At this part of the playoffs, experience plays a big role, and it's going to be good to see if they can step up to the challenge. But if I had to pick who I think would beat, who I think will win this series, I think I will be going Golden State in 6. Another thing that Houston cannot do if they want to have a chance at winning this series is they cannot lose home court advantage on game 1. They fought all year for it. They have the number 1 record, the best record in the league. They need to play like it. They need to step up. Excuse me. They need to step up and hold the home court advantage down, because going to Oracle and trying to win in Oracle, if you lose one in Houston, it just makes it a tall task. It's not like it's going to be impossible, but once a team like Golden State gets to rolling and they get the confidence that they can beat you at your house, it's basically going to be a wrap from there. But I can see Houston winning 2 games minimum. If it goes to 7 and it has to be a game 7 in Houston, that just brings in a whole new level of pressure, and I'm not sure Houston is ready for that right now. I could be wrong, but more often than not, the team with the most experience or the understanding of the magnitude of a game 7 usually comes out on top. So that's my take on the Western Conference. Now let's get to the Eastern Conference. We have the Boston Celtics versus the Cleveland Cavaliers. And I'm going to be honest with you. From the outset of the season, back in September, October, when the season first began, before we knew who was going to be hurt and who was going to be traded and who was going to play like pretenders or contenders and all of that, before we knew all of that, the general consensus by a large margin would probably have these 2 teams in the Eastern Conference Finals. Whether it was because they thought Kyrie was going to get them there or LeBron was going to get them there, however it shakes out, the fact still remains that these were the 2 teams that everybody predicted that will face, or at least wanted them to face each other in the Eastern Conference Finals. Just like the West, everyone wanted to see Golden State and Houston in the conference finals. So we are down to that Final Four in the NBA that pretty much everyone predicted or could really see this turnout happening. Now, let's talk about the Boston Celtics, who have faced a lot of adversity to get to this point. You lose Kyrie, you lose Gordon Hayward. They got some other role players, Daniel Tice, not Tyus Jones, I'm sorry. Shane Larkin. Smart was out for a little bit. You had Jaylen Brown with the hamstring. They've been through the ups and the downs that you go through in the NBA season. But with that being said, they're still here at the conference finals versus the Cleveland Cavaliers. So it really doesn't matter how they got here. The fact that they got here is I won't say it's remarkable, but I think it's a product of the coaching by Brad Stevens, who I think is one of the best coaches in the NBA as of right now. I mean, don't get me wrong, there's GOAT level coaches like Greg Popovich, and then there's everybody else. But in the pack of everybody else, Brad Stevens is clearly ahead of a lot of coaches in the NBA. You could talk Quinn Snyder with the job he did with with Utah. You could talk before they got swept by Cleveland. You could talk Dwayne Casey a little bit, simply because Toronto just did, the best thing that they've done as a franchise this year, minus the playoffs. But as far as regular season is concerned, you had some coaches. Terry Stotts did a good job with Portland until the playoffs. So that's what separates Brad Stevens, because he did it also in the playoffs. So in order for the Boston Celtics to win this series, I'm looking at Terry Rozier to continue playing the way that he's playing. I'm looking at Jaylen Brown being healthy and being able to be what he's been. Jason Tatum, also Al Horford, has been big, stepping up in big moments for the Celtics in that Philadelphia series. He may not have wowed you with the stats, but he made some big shots and got them in a position to win a lot of close games in this series. I mean, in that series against Philadelphia. So Al Horford will definitely be a factor. How well he does versus Kevin Love or Tristan Thompson or whoever the Cleveland Cavaliers choose to use as their big man in this series will be a determining factor of how well the Celtics themselves will do in this series. You got to look at Marcus Smart. You got to look at Marcus Morris. You got to look at Aaron Baines as the role players that could potentially give you something extra on top of, the Brown, Tatum, Rozier trio. You know what I mean? The one thing that worries me about Boston, and it's not a main concern, simply because they do have the home court advantage in this series, but their record on the road is not that great in the playoffs. And if you let Cleveland steal a game in Boston, you're going to be fighting an uphill battle to get out of this series and make it to the finals if you can't win on the road. You have to win on the road at this point. So, if all things stay consistent and Boston does what they did in the Milwaukee series, what they did in the Philadelphia series, they have a formidable shot at making it to the NBA Finals. That's a fact. Like I said, the only thing that worries me is how they play on the road. I believe, without me looking at numbers just off the top of my head, based off of what I remember, I want to say that there may be 1-3 on the road, but they're undefeated at home. You take that with a grain of salt and hope that they can put some things together on the road for the Boston crowd and the people that want Boston to win or go to the finals. You would need them to win something on the road in this series if they want to advance. Now let's get to Cleveland. Cleveland has had, I think, the most ups and downs of any team that has made it to this point right now. As far as the trades, the turmoil, coach takes a leave, LeBron not playing the best January, Kevin Love being injured, you got George Hill being injured, Tristan Thompson being benched, the Isaiah Thomas project or experiment. It was a lot. And I'm leaving out a lot of other things, but those are some of the main things that they went through this season. But that's neither here nor there, because they are here in the conference finals, and they had a hard-fought first round, which I think was more of a wake-up call than anything. For not just LeBron, but for the players involved on the Cavs team, because getting through that series, I think that kind of woke it. I think that kind of woke them up to let them know that, hey, this is the playoffs, man. We have to be better. We have to play better. We have to defend. We have to hit our open shots. We have to come together as a team and push through. So I think that's why they ran through the Toronto Raptors so easy, because there was no resistance, man. I mean, there were some close games. Game 1, I believe, game 3 or 4. I can't remember what game that was when LeBron hit the game winner off the glass. I believe that was game 4. Or no, that was game 3. That was game 3. Games 1 and 3 were definitely within reach. But Toronto just didn't go get it. When you get to this point, you have to go get it, man. Then no one's going to give you anything in the playoffs. But enough about Toronto. Let's get back to Cleveland. The factors that I'm looking at for them to win this series, for them to be able to win this series, LeBron has to be LeBron 24/7. And I believe he will be. But on top of that, Love has to be Love. He has to be a minimum regular season Kevin Love, which was 18 and 11. He can't dip below that. He has to. He can't have a repeat of the Indiana series. No, in any game, he has to be regular season Kevin Love or Toronto series Kevin Love from here on out if Cleveland wants to have a shot at moving forward. J.R. Smith has to be J.R. Smith from game 4 against Toronto. I'm not saying he has to be perfect. All I'm saying is he has to be consistent. He has to hit his open shots. They need him to score somewhere between 12 and 17 points, give or take. You know what I mean? He has to hit his threes. He has to drive the lane. He has to hit his free throws, and he has to play some good defense. I don't know who they'll have him match up on. I don't know if they'll have him matched up against Tatum or Brown or Rozier or Smart or whoever. But whoever he plays defense on, he's gonna have to step up. Corver has been pretty good this playoff run, with the exception of a few games. But he has to be able to hit those shots in big moments, in timely threes, or coming off the screens and hitting shots. He has to continue to do that. Tristan Thompson, if he plays, which I think he will, has to be that offensive rebound guy that gets Cleveland extra possessions. He has to be a force in the paint offensively, as far as getting those tip ins, or when they do pass it to him on the pick and roll, catching lobs or hitting that baby hook shot. I think he has to do that also. I'm not saying he needs to score, 20 points or nothing like that, but 10 points and 10 rebounds consistently from Tristan Thompson would be of great help. George Hill, he has to show why they picked him up. You know what I'm saying? I know he's a little older now, but he has championship pedigree from playing with the San Antonio Spurs. He played well when he was in Indiana. Sacramento, I'm not going to even discuss that, because I just think the pieces weren't there, and I don't think he really was interested in being in Sacramento. I think that was more like I take the paycheck while I'm on my way out of the league type of thing. But being traded to Cleveland, I believe, maybe gave him a revitalization of him being in the position that he's in, with a chance to maybe contend for a championship. So I think George Hill defensively will be um, will be more of a factor as opposed to him scoring. I think being a floor general, controlling the pace of the game, and being a defensive presence against a guard like Terry Rozier or Marcus Smart, I think that will play big as far as for Cleveland. Now, if he can get you 10 to 13 points with a few assists, hit his open shots, that's magnificent. But I'm not looking at George Hill as a person that's going to be um, the X factor offensively in this series. I'm looking at him to be someone that can defend and slow down what we've been seeing from Terry Rozier um, in this series. I don't know what Cleveland is going to do in this series with Clarkson, Nance, and Hood. But if they get chances, they need to produce. There's no reason why. I could see maybe against Toronto, they're a more veteran laden team, and maybe it was too big for you in that series or the Indiana series. But you're talking about a Boston team with a bunch of young guys that these guys played against, when they played for the Lakers or in Utah. These guys are basically almost similar skill level and similar experience in age. So I don't think the moment should be too big for them if they come in and Clarkson has to guard, um, he has to go against Rozier, or Hood has to go against Tatum or Brown or something like that. I won't say it's an even matchup, but I will say that I think that they maybe can get a little bit more confidence going against a first year, second year, third year guy, as opposed to going against guys that been in the league for 8 to 10 years. I don't know. It's going to be an interesting series. I do think the series has the potential to go 7, unless Bron just goes beast mode and just blows the doors off of Boston. But the way that Boston is coached, I don't see that happening. I do see a lot of close games. Every game this series, I think, will be a close game. I don't think we'll get too many blowouts. There may be one, depending on fatigue, or it's just a bad night for one team, and they call the dogs off early and put in the subs, the 12th man squad or whatever, and just let that game go. But I don't see a lot of early just 20-point leads and just running off wire to wire with a win in this series. I see a lot of back and forth lead changes. I see a lot of hard fought possessions. I see a lot of coming of age of what we're going to see in the near future in the NBA as far as Boston is concerned. And I think we'll see the greatness of LeBron in this series continued in this playoffs. I want to say Cleveland in 7. Cleveland in 7. I think that's what it'll come down to. Now, if it's anything shorter than 7, then it's Cleveland. Um, just going, just wrecking shop on Boston. Maybe because Boston is tired, but they're resilient. I'm not sure. They still get a few days rest before game 1 starts. They don't get as much rest as they would have got had they closed Philly out in 4, like Cleveland closed out Toronto. But like I said, Brad Stevens is a coach that I think is better than Tyronn Lue, and he'll make the adjustments needed. Um, but will those adjustments be able to overcome a superstar like LeBron James when he's dropping 40 with 10 rebounds and 11 assists? If they can make those adjustments, or if they can slow him down, and they can make other players beat them, namely like J.R. Smith or Kyle Korver or Tristan Thompson, and not Kevin Love and LeBron James, they have a real shot as far as controlling the series and winning the series. But I'm leaning towards Cavs in this series. Cavs in 7 is my prediction. Western Conference, I got Golden State in 6. And now you're in the know, man. It's your boy Trizzy. That was my NBA conference preview breakdown. Like, subscribe, share, all of that shit, man. I'm trying to come up with new content, man, for the channel. So this is one, man. So hopefully I'll be back after game 1 of both series and have some more in-depth analysis as far as what I think will happen, or what I see happen in game 1, as far as what could be some telltale signs of how the rest of the series may shake out, and maybe even change my prediction on what I see from game 1. Who knows? But subscribe to the channel, man. Subscribe to the channel. Subscribe to the channel. Like, comment, share. Word of mouth, tell your friends. It's your boy Trizzy.